It took me a while, but I found out a nice workflow to edit animations with the control rig for Unreal Engine's mannequin and control rig that exists with its animation sample. In this tutorial, I'll be going over the hurdles and challenges of setting that up and how to set it up so that you can easily preview the weapon and you can author or edit animations so that it matches up with your equipment. This way of animating, it's nice because you can add personality to your character and you don't even have to open up Maya or Blender. And this can also be used if you create new weapons and you need to author or edit existing weapon animations to match up with those new weapons. So in the case of my banana weapon, this process would have been nicer than what I ended up using in the video. All you need for this tutorial is the control rig and one of the skeletal meshes from the game animation sample. And this will work for any of these characters as they are either rigged the same hierarchy or they're retargeted. I think it'll work well with MetaHuman because they're also of the same hierarchy. So what you could do if you're not directly using Lara is you can go ahead and migrate the skeleton Manny and the control rig mannequin body. And that's the control rig we're going to use to animate or edit animations in the editor. And you could just right click and you could migrate. In my case, I will be using the Lara sample, so just the Lara starter game. I'm starting from that because it already has some weapons, so it will be possible to edit animations and preview with weapons and just make sure that the animations match with the weapon. It also uses the same control rig and skeletal mesh and skeleton as the animation sample. Okay, so this is my fresh Lara install. I just called it control rig edit anims. So it's version 5.4. I'm gonna go ahead and find the animation that I want to edit. So in my case, I want to edit the pistol idle break. So I'm just gonna go and find the animation layer for the pistol. So if your project, if you're just using some animations you got from Mixamo or from Lyra or from the animation sample, you can go ahead and just open that animation sequence. With the animation layers, at first you won't see anything, but to be able to preview what's going on, you can go to the preview scene settings tab, and then in the preview animation blueprint, since this layer will be running on the mannequin base animation blueprint, this is how you can preview your animation layer, and it's really useful. The application method is a link layer because that is how the animation will be applied to the animation blueprint. The one I want to change is that idle break right there when they look around. I just want to lower his hands, but honestly I could change it in any way that I want. Okay, so to find that, I'm going to navigate to the details panel. And then in the idle break, I have the pistol idle break scan. I'm going to go ahead and navigate to that. So this is the animation I want to modify. And what I like to do is I like to duplicate this one so I get to keep the original animation. And then I'll call this one scan mod, or maybe scan lower arms, or scan lower, so it's not too long for packaging. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and open that one. And then if you want to edit it, you can click this to expand the toolbar, or if it's large enough, mine isn't because I'm using a UI scale of 1.2. So I can click this to expand, and then I'm going to choose edit in sequencer, and I'm going to bake to the control rig, which is the control rig we saw earlier. So the mannequin body. So this will bake this animation to the control rig's controls. Okay, and then I like to reduce the keys so that I have nicer curves to work with. This reset controls, I still don't know exactly what it does. I've tried with and without, and I couldn't figure it out. So if you have any idea, please put a comment in the comment section. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and bake to control rig. Okay, and I'm gonna minimize this. And what this will do is that it will open a level sequence inside of the map that you're currently in. The map doesn't really matter. In this case, it's a little problematic because the 0Z is under for some reason. So I could always open a new map and edit this level sequence wherever I want to. What this did is, if I go back to my content browser, it created a level sequence under this folder. And it's just called driving, and then the name of your animation sequence. So every time you edit an animation, it will create a new level sequence and it will create a new folder. So it creates a lot of folders pretty fast. But if ever you're very happy with your modifications, you could always go to the animation sequence, and then you could unlink the level sequence, and then you can go ahead and delete that folder and that level sequence. But for now, we like that level sequence. What's great about it is that it's always linked and you can always open it later for more edits. And if I save this, it will update the animation sequence. So I'm going to go ahead and just play it so it's the same animations. It's funny because I never noticed that the fingers are twitching in the original animation sequence until I tried to edit it, and I thought it was a bug, but it's actually part of the original animation. But yeah, if I close this tab and then I go back to, I'm going to search for lower. So you can always reopen that level sequence by clicking edit its sequencer and then open level sequence. So that seems all nice and fine and dandy. But if I use that animation, you'll see that there's some issues with it. So let's go ahead and actually use that animation in the anim layers. So to change it, go to the details panel and then search for the idle breaks and choose your the new animation you just made. So if you have a simpler animation blueprint, you can select it directly there. But for Lara, this is where it would be for the pistol animation layer. And you see that there's some weirdness going on. The feet, they scoot towards their original spot. And there's some weirdness with their arm. So this took me a bit, but I found out that it's because of some foot IK location and the weapon socket location. And the way I found out is that I compared the two animation sequences, so the previous one and the new one. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So right now, if I try to open both animations, it will replace the other one. So what you can do is you can allow to open multiple animation sequences at the same time by navigating to the editor preferences, or I'm just going to search for animation and let's just scroll down. Okay, and then it's actually under the content editors, animation editor, and then always open animation assets in a new tab. So this will allow us to see both animation sequences at the same time. Okay, so now when I click on the other one, it opens in a different tab. Okay, so let's go ahead and compare them side by side. At first I didn't see many differences. They seem nearly identical. But then I figured it might be something with the IK or the weapon socket by going to the skeleton. And then this is our original one, and this is our new one. So if I search for the weapon R in the details panel, you can see that the location changes. So there's some animation on that bone in particular that the control rig doesn't know about and doesn't care about. And you can see that the muzzle is facing over here. And then when I'm opening up my new animation and I go to my weapon R, you can see that there's no changes and the muzzle is actually behind, or the muzzle is pretty much where the head is. So that is not exactly where we want to shoot at. And the other issue is the feet. Left foot IK, it's snapped to the left foot. So its location changes very slightly, and its rotation as well. And same thing with the right foot IK. And then the new animation, we can see that it's not at the right spot at all. And same with the right foot. So it sort of makes sense that our IK is overriding where the foot would be. And that's why you have that weird foot sliding. So the first thing we're going to address is the feet location. And to do that, we actually just need to edit the control rig itself, but nothing too complex. Control rig was a little scary at first, and then just taking it one step at a time, it helps to understand a little bit more of what's going on. So control rig, I'm going to search, okay, the control rig for the mannequin body. We're just going to add some logic so that the left foot IK matches with the left bone, the left foot bone, and the right foot IK does the same thing. Sometimes when the sequencer tab is open and I watch animation sequences, it crashes. So if that happens a lot to you, just to make sure to close that sequencer. So just a little overview. So in construction, it just tries to fix all the controls to the location of the bones. And this is the one we care about for now, the solve. That one is whenever you change your controls and how the bones react to the controls. We're going to add at the end, we're just going to make sure that those IK match with the bones. So what we want to do at the end of all the forward solve is we want to get the transform location of the bones. So just right click, type in get transform, and then it's this one. And we're going to get the bone transform of the foot. So the foot, right. Okay, and this is not initial, so this is like after you're modifying the controls. And then we're going to set the transform of the IK bone. So set transform, it's this one here. And then the item that we want is the IK foot right. Okay, so all we're doing here is just copying that transform to the IK right so that it snaps to it. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the left foot. So I'm just going to duplicate these nodes and then find the foot left and then the foot left IK. And this is all you need to fix that IK issue. Okay, so I'm going to save this. And then when I go back to my pistol anim layers, so you can see that the issue is still there. So what that means is I just have to resave the animation from the sequencer. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And I'm just going to save. And now if I go back here, okay, so you can see that the feet are fixed. But it was pretty funny in game just seeing the feet slide in. It frustrated me a little bit, and then it was nice to figure out why that was happening. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to fix the weapon location, or the weirdness that's going on here. Okay, so to just show the issue, what's useful in the sequencer when I'm making an animation that has an attachment, I can preview the attachment during the animation while I'm modifying it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the pistol skeletal mesh. Okay, so it's called sk_pistol. So you could bring in whatever asset you have. So if it's a sword or anything, and then attach it the same way as you would during gameplay. Okay, so that skeletal mesh, with that selected in the outliner, I'm gonna add it to the sequencer and add actor to sequencer. I'm going to add the pistol, and then I'm going to make sure that it's actually spawned within the animation. And what's great is it doesn't seem to break the animation sequence to have an attachment. It seems to just disregard it, which is what we actually want. And then this pistol, I'm going to attach it. I'm going to add a constraint, a parent constraint. So you can go in your animation mode, animation tab, and then click on the add constraint button, and then add a parent constraint. And then we're going to pick the mannequin. So just make sure that it's the name of the animation, and then click. And then I want to attach it to the weapon right bone. Okay, and then I can right click on it and just reset this property to its default value. Okay, and then I'm going to click off for the dynamic offset because we're not going to change that. And how we got these values is I search for the weapon ID pistol, which has the rules of how the pistol will attach to the player. And it's under the actors to spawn, and then pistol, and then weapon right is the attached socket. And then there is a minus 90 degrees. So I'm going to add that as well, just so we can have an accurate representation of how the pistol is attached. So I'm going to right click on that constraint again, and then I'm going to add this number here. So this animation may look very problematic. And this is the thing we're going to fix next. Okay, so go ahead and open up your control rig again. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a control for the weapon right bone so that we can actually set where we want that to be per animation. Because right now the control rig has no knowledge of that bone and it doesn't care about it. So let's go ahead and find our weapon right. Okay, and I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to create a control. So new and then control. Okay, great. So that's our new control. I'm going to actually use something that's more easy to click on. So in my details panel, I'm going to scroll down and choose the shape property. And I'm going to use a thick diamond. You can choose whatever shape that you'd like and whatever color that you would like. And then I don't actually need it to be parented to the bone because we're gonna change it so that the control controls the bone. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear these search filters, and I'm going to drag it under the forward right. Let's see where that is. Okay, so I'm going to drag it under the forward control right there. So it's nicely parented. Okay, and it will follow those controls as well. And what I want to do is on construction, I just want to make sure that it's at the right spot. Okay, so the weapon right control, I'm going to add it to the same logic that the hand control have. So on construction, setting up the arm. Okay, so it sets up the fingers. I think all we need to do is add it to the right hand. Okay, so this takes care of setting it at the location. You could also add some nodes outside of this, but I figured because the logic is already there that I would just add it there. So I'm going to add a new bone, and then it's the weapon R. Okay, so now in construction, it'll place this control to the right location. But then the next thing we want to do is that, so right here, we'll kind of do the same logic. Instead of getting the bone location, we'll get the control location and then match the bone to that control. Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate this. And in this case, we're looking for a control. And the control is named weapon R. All right, and then the bone is called weapon R. So now when you move this control, it will move that bone. We have something going on here. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to go back and open those two animation sequences and compare and just see what was that weapon R value. There's a scan lower and then there's a scan. So I'm going to open the scan. Okay, and I'm going to search for the weapon R. What worked for me was to grab the first frame because it's a relative offset. And then unfortunately, I couldn't copy the whole location. So we're just going to copy them one by one. Okay, so in the sequencer, what I care about is this diamond right here. And I'm going to save. So the weapon right control, I'm gonna make sure that I auto key whenever something changes. And then I'm gonna actually key that one, the first frame. And I'm gonna copy that bone location. And that technique I use is useful for any of the animations that you want to change. So whether it be a jumping animation with the pistol or whatnot, it seems to always be a different value. Okay, so I'm going to paste that here. I'm going to make it smaller so you can sort of see what's going on. Okay, so location Y. Oh, that's right. I'm at the end of the animation, so I'm just going to make that smaller and I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go back to the start and then I'm going to key that frame. Okay, so I remembered. Nice. Okay, and then the rotation. Oh, interesting. After some debugging, I made some changes in the control rig, and I still think it's important to show. Hopefully it's not too confusing. But essentially, the two controls that we had added here for weapon R, so it's under your setup arms and fingers in the control rig. It was messing up the wrist by a lot. So what I did is I just removed these ones and I moved the weapon R control under the hand R so that it follows it. So this hand R. So just make sure to drag that control under the hand R so that it will maintain the right offset. Okay, so just right click on your element and remove the array element. One thing to note in the control rig is that, interestingly enough, I don't think that the undo works well or works at all. So if I compile and save and I go to edit, undo, it doesn't do anything. So I guess don't try to make any mistakes in the control rigs, or just be aware that you won't have that to fall back on. So I'm not sure if that's coming up as a fix in the future. Another thing that was being weird is that the weapon, it was facing all sorts of wrong directions. So I fixed it by essentially just removing this constraint, and I had some transforms in there as well. So I also removed this, and then I just remade the constraint and it was fine. So I'm not too sure what was the problem there, but this is essentially how you can remove and re-add some constraints. So I'm just going to choose the weapon R, then right click, undo the offset transforms, and then add the transform back. So -90. Okay, so now when I play, oh, that's right. Because I was in a different frame, I'm just gonna go ahead and see what I can do about that. So weapon R. So I'll just move that to there. Okay, there you go. So that's what it will look like in the game. So I might as well go ahead and test that out before we finally actually edit the animation, just to make sure everything's all right. So in the pistol anim layers, the scan lower is here, and it looks pretty good. So I'm just gonna wait a little bit. Nice. Okay, so that looks really nice. And then in game, let's see, just make sure that the pistol is all right. So to do that, I'm gonna go ahead and navigate to the shooter gym. I didn't close the sequencer, so it might be a bit weird. Okay, no, it's all fine. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and play. Okay, and I'm gonna be God mode. And of course I'm Quinn. Okay, what I'm gonna do for now is in the pick random character, I'm just gonna make sure we choose Manny. So pick random character. I'm just gonna unhook this and I'm gonna use Manny. So this is the component that, the modular component that essentially chooses what your cosmetics are. Okay, so now Manny, and then I will eject with F8. And yeah, you can see that this animation looks great. Okay, so all of our weapon and the feet are fixed up. Now we're ready to actually edit the animation. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this. And I'm going to go to my animation. I'm just going to search for lower so I can find it easily. Scan lower, there it is. Show in folder. Then I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to edit in sequencer. So let's go ahead and open the level sequence. I'm in a different map. All the maps have higher grounds for some reason. And all that I want to do is I want to lower the arm. So I'm not a animator by trade. I can get around just enough so that I can block in. Oh, what's interesting is that this didn't immediately change into the animation mode. So if it's still in the selection mode, you can go ahead and click this and then go to activate animation mode. By around this point, I want the arm to be lowered. I find that animating with inverse kinematic is easier than forward kinematic, and the control rig has set that up really nicely so you can toggle between both. That is under the arm RFK-IK switch and the same one for the left hand. So I'm going to go ahead and activate these two. So on and on. So what this will do is that it'll activate the inverse kinematic controls so that I can move these cubes around and the arm will calculate from that position instead of calculating forward on the curves we used to have. Let me go ahead and just make sure that these two controls are not keyed, that they're just on all the time. So switch. Okay, sweet. So they don't have any keys. That's perfect. And what I'm going to do to make it easier on me is I'm going to add a constraint so that the left arm follows the right arm. And I just have to animate the right arm. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to go back to the 0. Slow down my camera. Okay, I'm going to add a new constraint. And this time it'll be translation. And then select the right IK control. Okay, and I'm going to add another constraint, and this time will be rotation, and then I'm going to pick that one as well. Okay, so now when I move my right hand, my left hand moves as well. So it makes it easier to animate. I'm just going to undo that. Okay, sometimes when you undo, it'll just seem like you just reset your animation and broke everything, and then you play and it's totally fine. Sometimes animating with control rig feels a little finicky, but most of the time it's very nice with all the different animation tools that there are here, and I feel like I didn't even scratch the surface. Okay, so now that we have those constraints set up, I'll say around this time I want the fingers to be down or the arms to be down. Okay, so right at that point, I'm gonna lower that and also rotate. Okay, so lower some more and then towards the body. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then all we need to do is smooth over that pose so that it looks good. I have auto keyframe on, which is good. Okay, I'm gonna clear that search result so I can see where that animation is. So now when you play, it just goes down really quickly. So it's this frame right here. If I open up my editor, now I can slowly, or I can smooth out that curve before. Okay, so I'll start with the X. So it has a lot of keys. So even if I chose to clean the keys, it's still pretty full. Oops, I selected the one I don't want to delete. Okay, so what I'd like to do sometimes is just select all of it, transform, and then make it smaller or delete them all. Okay. And I could always add some more. So I like this. At least the X is fixed now. The Y will do the same thing so that it smoothly interpolates. Maybe here. I might have deleted a little too much, but we could always add more keyframes. Same thing with the Z. So it'll be a very steep curve and then go back up. And I do want it to stick around at the bottom a little bit long. I guess this one could be like this. It kind of gets rid of some of the character, unfortunately. And then the same with the pitch. And the yaw. Maybe I'll add another one. So they're lower. That looks pretty good. And if you wanted to loop, you can click this button and it will loop your level sequence. Sweet. Okay, so I want... Oh, a lot of spazzing on the fingers. Okay, so that looks good. So I think this is the frame where it goes the most down. Okay, there it is. So if I want to copy that frame over, I guess most of what I want is for it to stay down until maybe here. If I copy that point, it'll stay here. So I care mostly about the Z and the rotation. So I will look at the Z and just make sure that that location is copied over. Maybe around here. Okay, so I copy and pasted that keyframe. I'm gonna open up this here, and I just care about Z. We're gonna move all of this down. Okay, and even I wonder if we can just rotate it. Aha. Okay, that could be a nice curve. And I think there's an option to simplify. I still have a lot to learn in this for animation, that's for sure. So I will link a video about animating in Unreal where it's an actual animator and they have way more pointers for this. So don't worry too much about the animation side. Just know that you can do anything you want in this animation. Okay, so here we see the whole curve. So it's going down. Delete anything that kind of stands out. So this is a good way to see all of the curves, because at this point it probably needs to be higher and to the left. And then we'll try to match the rest to this. Maybe the pole vectors will also have to move for the arms. So this seems like it's the location Z. Okay, so I will just get rid of these and just smooth out the curve. And that looks pretty smooth. Okay, let's see. Nice. So the fingers look pretty spazzy, but I think once we bake the animation, it'll be fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this so we can preview what the animation sequence itself looks like. I haven't found an easy way to go from the sequence to the asset itself. If anyone finds that, please share. At least its name says that it's driving this animation, so go ahead and search for it. So scan lower. Okay, so now we have a new animation for our idle break. And let's see it in the game. Close that sequencer and let's play. So in game, there's also some offsets. Like, I think, okay, so I think we need to modify it so it goes less into his body. But that looks pretty good. The snapping is pretty intense, so I'll turn that off. So maybe just a bit high and a bit to the right. Okay, so I finagled it a little bit more. It looks a little bit better. And I'm gonna try it in the game, see what happens. Oh, nice, yeah. That looks much better. So there's no more arm clipping with your body, and it looks nice and relaxed. So you can make a bunch of idle breaks and add them, and then you'll have a bunch of different variations for your character. You can edit all of Lyra's animations. You can even author animations in Control Rig directly in the editor. I might cover that in a future video, because now that you've fixed the hands and the legs, and you have a way of previewing weapon attachments, you'll be able to make any animation that you want. In Lyra, the jump animations are very tactical. In my own game, Portabellows, I've edited the jump animations so that it matches more with the player. I've also edited the idle break. So there you go. There's a little Irma. So yeah, instead of looking around, she just does this. And that was nice to learn a bit more about the parenting and the constraints, just to make it look pretty good. What I find helpful when editing animations is to have a blank map with nothing around. So the only thing I can edit is the control rig. So in this case, I created a new map, so just new level and then basic, and then I saved it under content, animation maps, and I will make sure not to cook this in a package build. But that fixes the issue with the ground. So I think it was just the environment that was higher, and now it's easy to see and just focus on the animation itself. I've also authored a new animation for the ground pound. And I look forward to adding an animation for her jumping back up after she hits the floor. But yeah, I feel like I added a lot of personality already to her just by editing the existing animations. And it's nice to be able to iterate this quickly without having to open up Maya or any other software or Blender. I hope that this tutorial helps you add a lot of character and personality to your game and make it less painful when you're creating a new weapon, of maybe reusing the same weapons animation, but just fixing some offset. And yeah, this one, I'm very happy with having figured this out. And the control rig, it was hard to understand at first, and it still is. But I feel like I'm getting somewhere with the control rig. I want to thank all my Patreons for supporting me. I've added some new memberships to the YouTube. So if you want to give back and you found this tutorial useful, then that's one way that you can. But yeah, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.